They're just like on their toes. They're like, you got to practice like this. And I'm like, no. What if I fall over and die?
So welcome back, or hello if you are a new viewer to this podcast. My name's Tom and I'm the creator of Knit Slips on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok. For this conversation, I talked to the lovely Phoebe. Phoebe is someone who I've wanted to talk to back when I started the podcast in 2020. Before we get into the conversation a little bit more, I would just like to have this opportunity to say please like, subscribe, follow and all that cool stuff to this podcast. The numbers really help, and if you can also share it as well. The idea of the podcast is to try and help people with their mental health, and I think crafting is a really good way of doing so. This episode is sponsored by One of the Gang, obsessed with crafts, inspired by fashion and powered by makers, selling DIY kits to premium sustainable yarn. Whether you're a novice knitter or a maverick maker, One of the Gang have got a project for you. Head on over to oneofthegang.com for more information and stick around to the end of the episode to get 20% discount. Thank you very much, One of the Gang, for sponsoring, and back to the episode. So in this conversation, Phoebe and I talk a bit about how she got into knitting, her first project with One of the Gang, and also what yarn she would be from One of the Gang. I'll be back at the end of the conversation with a little bit more chat, but for now, we'll slip into the conversation, getting to know Phoebe.
I am from Melbourne in Australia. I'm a knitter. I was going to say crocheter. I am not. I can crochet if I go back on YouTube once in a while and I'm like, how do you single crochet? And sometimes YouTuber. And I am also an actor.
That's awesome. So because I read in your bio that you do like a bit of acting and stuff. So did you do that at like college or university or anything?
No, so I studied film and TV when I went to TAFE. It's called TAFE. I don't know if it's a thing everywhere else, but it's basically like tertiary education. It's just furthering education. So it was just a lot better because it's a more hands-on than uni. If you go to uni, you get a lot of theory and all that stuff, but I wanted to be more hands-on, obviously with film and TV.
So is it more like an internship kind of thing? So do you work directly with people in TV and film, or
no? So it's just like a cheaper uni. Like
like our college, I did a BTEC in music technology, so I think it's probably just a little bit more focused. Maybe is that
yes?
So it's more focused
I think
on.
It might be that.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you need electives and this and that or anything. You just have that's the course and this is like what you do. So I studied film and TV for a good 2-3 years. It's so long ago now. But I did that and it was great. I did learn a lot. But I think for me it was like I always wanted to be part of the film and TV industry. Like for me, when I was growing up, I always watched movies, I watched TV shows, I watched all that stuff, and I was like, I want to work in film and TV no matter what capacity. But I think it was because there was just no representation, especially in Australia, no representation of like Asian actors. That's the reason why I didn't really pursue acting. I think I did want to do it. I was like, oh yeah, like I want to try it, but it never really like happened because I'm just like, well, I can't really be an actor, like I was like, yeah, I won't do it. I'll just like work behind the scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I studied that and very hard to get a job in that industry, like most industries. And then what did I do? I just really worked whatever jobs I could really. And then I started acting in about 2014. I started taking classes. I didn't really go uni, I just took like a lot of short courses, classes, and I've been pursuing that for a while now.
That's awesome. I guess that kind of industry, they want more experience rather than like a qualification. So
yeah, exactly. It's all who you know and it's all networking. It's just it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I find that with most industries, yeah.
I think my partner works kind of like in the arts industry and with museums and stuff, and that is a lot of kind of who you know. But I mean, I've been working in food for like a long time. I don't want to say how long. And I think I've kind of grown up as kind of like that's a career. There's a lot of people that think of it as like just a part-time job, but I think
Yeah.
I've been quite lucky that I've been working in it for so long and I've built up experience. And
Mm.
um, if we like, we've looked at potentially moving a couple times, and I've never really had a problem with trying to find work because of my experience.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's cool that you've been. So, have you done any like big acting jobs, or are they kind of like independent-y things, or?
So short films and stuff mostly, like whatever you can find. A lot of like student films. You really have to vet those because some can get a bit dodgy. But yeah, no, I have an agent. She finds me really great auditions, and I audition for some things. Like this year, I did some really great auditions. Like it's gonna be a very actor thing to say, but I can't say like who for. But they were like big for me. I was like, oh my god, like they want me to audition? That's crazy. Um, and yeah, I booked a commercial earlier this year as well, which was really fun to do. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. I thought like obviously I went from like film and TV, which I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be like quite it's a hard industry to get into. I'm like, oh yeah, acting will be like easier. It's not easier. It's like worse.
No.
Acting is like much harder to get into than just like behind the scenes. But
Yeah.
yeah. But
Do you
yeah.
think you would want to do more than just acting? Would you want to look into like directing and stuff like that, or are you quite happy being in front of the camera and like acting?
Um, I'm honestly no. If I was on at the moment, like I really want to just act. I kind of like just like doing my thing and then leaving, and then and then it's all in the hands of everyone else. Just like edit, direct, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
At this stage, no. If I kind of like direct my. I guess if anyone's watched my YouTube videos, I kind of do sometimes direct my own little skits, and that's
Yeah.
like so stressful. I'm like, oh, I can't, and then I have to be in them, and I'm like, oh, how does anyone like do this at a bigger scale? I'm like, I can't even do it at like a no scale. Like, how does anyone do it at like, when they're directing something, but they also star in it? And I'm like, how are you doing this?
Yeah. But I guess
Yeah,
that's some people who are very like controlling and they want to have
yeah,
control over everything. But that's cool.
yeah,
So I mean, it's cool that you've been able to find a couple of people that you've been able to maybe not the mainstream might know, but that you wanted to be in. Like, it's pretty cool.
yeah. It is. It's really, really cool, and it's
Do you
fun
have
as well.
do you have a show or like some project that you would like that's the dream to like get to, or?
Um, yeah, anything on Netflix.
Yeah.
I think Netflix have a weird like I love like I don't know if you watch it like The Umbrella Academy. It's a
Yeah.
show. Yeah, it's a bit quirky. It's a bit weird. I don't know. I kind of like that. I really vibe with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, or yeah, anything in Marvel, like anyone else, any other actor in the world.
I feel like at some point every actor is gonna like be in Marvel because there's so
Yeah,
much
pretty
of it.
much.
So I think anyone who is in acting will probably have, even if it's just like a side bit character or something. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
just a featured extra that
yeah.
walks by.
And I think bigger movies like that and stuff like that, with the new directors and stuff like Taika that's coming
Mm.
on, I think they are trying to like not just get like the American or the English actor. They are trying to like push and have a bit more representation of people.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that's really cool. I think the industry is, I don't know, from an outsider it seems like they're growing and they're like trying to be a bit more inclusive.
yeah, definitely. It's changed a lot. There's been so many like movements
Yeah.
in the last couple of years. So it's definitely like there, and I think it definitely is on the minds of a lot of studios as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's like moving forward in the right direction.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's kind of move on to your knitting. So when did you start knitting?
So I started knitting when I was about 13, and I remember I found like a pair of knitting needles. There were 3.75 millimeter knitting needles in like my mum's stuff, and I took it to school, and I was like, because this is going to show my age, but back then there was no YouTube, right? and you had to sort of go through like knitting books, but my school didn't have knitting books. But I mentioned it to a friend, and she's like, oh, I know how to knit, just bring your stuff. All right, cool. So I'm like at school with my knitting stuff. I'm like 13 years old, and I remember just all the kids, like I was walking around with my yarn and my stuff, and they're just like, what are you, a grandma? And I'm like, oh God, oh God. But I wanted to learn. And yeah, we were just like in the corner of this like library. I was trying to be real discreet, like no one look at me while I try and learn how to do this. Yeah, she taught me a lot actually. Like she was really, really good, and I still use those same techniques today as well. But yeah, so when I was 13, and then I really just did it on and off. I did it every winter. So every time it like came to winter, I'd be like, oh, it's time to knit. I gotta knit something. Because for me, knitting was like a winter thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then, yeah, but on and off for like years up until now. And then just like everyone else during the pandemic, I just started picking it up a lot more.
Yeah.
So on social media, I'm like, you know what, I'll just like, I'll make this and I'll knit this, and then it just sort of kept snowballing from there, and now I just knit all the time.
That's really cool. Nice.
Yeah.
So like you just had a friend that was able to teach you. Did your mum try and teach you or anything as well, or?
No, I actually don't think she knew how. I think they were like maybe
you just had a pair of random needles.
Grandmas. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They were maybe my grandmas or my aunties, and she had them. She was just like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay. Great, thanks.
That's cool. That's good that you were able to find someone. Because I think, like, I kind of learned, like, only, like, maybe 5-6 years ago. And I learned through YouTube because it was just easier to do.
YouTube is an amazing resource to learn anything. Like, I'm trying to learn to roller skate as well. And I like YouTube. And they're just like, do this and do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
We kind of looked into like roller skating and stuff, but we just haven't. No. I don't know. I think I'm getting too old.
You haven't tried it?
I mean, I used to like rollerblade a long time ago, and I really want to go ice skating again because it's the same kind of feel. But I think I feel like I'm getting too old, and I feel like if I fall over, I'm gonna hurt myself. So I'm like a bit nervous about doing it.
I feel like that too. That's why I don't go out a lot. I'm like, I watch a YouTube video, and they're just like on their toes. They're like, you gotta practice like this, and I'm like, no. What if I fall over and die? I'm gonna die because I've never broken a bone, and I'm like, I'm not gonna break a bone roller skating.
Yeah, you don't want to break bones when you're later on in life as well, because it's harder for your body to like do it. But I mean, that's pretty fun. Like, is that like another hobby that you get to like that you've done, or?
Yes, but it's winter here now, so I haven't really done it at all. I get pretty lazy. I did put on my skates in the house before, and then I'm like, this is the most dangerous thing I could be doing right now. If I fall over, it's worse to fall over like in your house because there's so many objects that
sharp
could, like,
things
fall
that you can fall on. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah.
So what was the kind of first thing that you made with one of the gang?
The first thing I made, I think, was like a hat or something, or what's it called? Like a headband sort of thing, like an ear warmer. Ear warmer. Ear warmer. That's what it was. Yeah, it was like a I used the Feeling Good yarn, and it was like a twisty thing. But yeah, that's what I remember. I remember seeing their kits and I'm like, this is amazing, because you know, like there's that whole thing like knitting's for old people. Like the girls at my school, they were like, you're a grandma, and I'm like, no, it's cool, it's fine. Yeah, I think chunky knits have really made things seem like a lot, like made knitting seem a lot cooler.
Yeah, more accessible, and I think it's different from like the grandma kind of knits, because like I know like the older generation like tend to prefer using like thinner needles. Is probably why you found like 3.75. And I think nowadays when people like pick up a bag of yarn or like pick up some wool, they'll go for like minimum like a 10 to like start off with, to like, because it's just chunkier. I think for me, like that helped loads because you can see results like way quicker with like chunky yarn, and exactly. And I think that can be quite satisfying.
Yeah, it's a generation thing as well. Like we want things like that, like done
Yeah.
quickly, especially if you grow up obviously with the technology we have today. It's
Hmm.
just like, yeah, I want to know like this quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a bit like that. Oh my god, I'm like done now. I can make another like hat and I can do this and but I think once you get into the world of like knitting with all the resources out there, you start to learn so much more. There's so much more out there.
Yeah.
Um, and also, like, I'm not bagging the older generation at all, but when you go on forums online and stuff,
Hmm.
you go. Sometimes I'm trying to find techniques or something that no one knows or no one can figure out, and then I'll go on a forum and full of like much older, much smarter knitters than me, and they will know exactly what I'm talking about. They're like, oh, it's this because they've been doing it for so many years.
Hmm.
So they just know, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. So I think we have like so much to learn from them as well.
Yeah. But I think that's the
Yeah.
advantage of the internet is that like
Mm.
before you would only have like maybe a couple of people telling you their techniques, but now you've got access to the internet and you can see like anyone can like post about how to do a certain stitch, which is like, I
Yes.
mean, like I feel like if you get like a stitch book from like maybe the 70s, it's going to have like not even half the amount of stitch books like stitches that you could find in a book that's like out now, because
Yes.
I think the resource is like there, people can like share it a lot easier.
Yeah. It's just so much easier just to be like, oh, this is what it is, and even like the because like video content is so much easier as well. It's
Hmm.
just so much like, oh, okay, I can just like I. Sometimes pictures are hard, and you're like, what are you doing there? How are you turning that?
Yeah,
Video
because
just makes it easier.
I feel like sometimes the photos look like they're trying rather than holding it naturally, they're trying to show you a way that's a
Mm.
little bit easier, but then that distorts what you're doing. So like you've got to just like
Yeah,
weirdly
you're
position your
like
hands
this.
to try and do it. So I think yeah, video is a lot easier because you can see it happening, like the movements a lot more. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think video like YouTube and stuff like that's like I think majority I think of people nowadays like that's how they learn, especially during lockdown as well. Like
Mm.
that was a really good way of learning.
Yeah, pretty much.
How do you work? Are you like someone who likes to follow a kit, or are you someone who likes to freestyle?
Um, I'm a bit of a freestyler because I discovered top-down knitting, and a lot of kits knit in separate parts, and you have to seam, and a lot of kits have like maybe bottom up, which I don't
Hmm.
love. So I will always reverse engineer something, and then like I'll try and follow the pattern. I'll be like, okay, these are the numbers. I've just got to sort of work my way backwards a bit, and
Yeah.
I will, yeah, reverse engineer to make it top down. So and then that's how I start customizing it as well. It's like a little bit more work, but for someone like me, I still haven't learnt my lesson about like like measuring myself. It's like, oh, measure here and make sure it's, and I'm like, nah, I'd just rather try it on and then see from there, like I just don't trust my own measurements sometimes. I'm like, is this right? I don't know, maybe. And then I'll do one sleeve longer than the other, and I'll just, I just
No,
still haven't learnt my lesson about
yeah,
that.
I get that completely. Like because generally speaking, I'm kind of making for myself or like
Mm,
for so I'm not on a time constraint. So if I do go wrong, I feel like it's more of a learning curve. It's not necessarily I'm going wrong. So I'm
yeah,
if I'm like shaping something and I'm like, I don't like it, then I have no problem kind of going back. And
yeah,
I feel like you can learn more that way than just following a pattern. But there's loads of people out there who
yeah,
just find it hard to freestyle and just learn the patterns, which
yeah.
I think that's fine. Like everyone's got their own technique, but
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly it. I've always just sort of done my own thing when I probably shouldn't have, but then that's probably how I got into making my own stuff. I'm like, well, this is how I'm going to do it. I may as well write it down and see how it goes.
do you plan a project beforehand, or do you just are you someone who likes to make notes as they're like knitting?
I do, so I'll be like, okay, I want like a project to look like, I'll draw it out first
Hmm.
on my iPad, and then I'll sort of be like, this is going to be this stitch, it's going to have this, and I'm going to have this technique, I'm going to use these needles, whatever. I'll have all that in my head, and then I actually I'll do a gauge swatch, and this is for like writing a pattern as well. I'll do a gauge swatch, and then sometimes I'll do it, and then I'll just start knitting and then writing as I go. So I'll try and do that thing, and it's a lot slower because I'm trying to write a full pattern as best as I can, so that because again, it's that thing of not like trusting myself. I'll write something stupid, and I'll go back and be like, what did I mean? Did I mean this? Like, and so I'll try and write it as detailed as possible. So it's a lot of just like putting it down and then being like, and then you have to sort of get back in the zone and then do that again. But yeah, usually I'll have an idea of how I want it, and then it could change as I'm working it up, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is like crap. I'm like, oh, this is not looking good. This is harder, and there'll be things that I missed. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. And then you have to sort of go back and like rethink how you want to work it.
Yeah, so, I think that's way more discipline than I have. Like I kind of like do the little thing of like doing a bit of a sketch and then writing things up a little bit at the beginning, like what needles I'm using, how much I'm casting on, and then I just kind of get into it and then forget to write anything until like maybe I put something down, or I kind of get to a complicated bit, and then I feel like, oh yeah, I should probably make notes about this. But which is why like I've had
done
people
that too.
Like I've had people asking me for patterns of stuff that I've made, and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of working on it, and I would love to get some patterns out, but I'm too bad at it.
Yeah, it's because it's so easy just to get lost, like just to like, keep going. You're like, I'm doing this and it's for myself, and in my head sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just make a second one and I'll follow something. I'll write it up and then I'll follow it, and then I don't, because I've sort of memorized it, and I'm like, oh, I hope this is what I've written down as well. So it's all terrible. I launched a new website last month, actually, FridayKnits.com. Yeah, it was really fun. I've always been into like website design, so I used Squarespace because that's the ad I actually got earlier this year. Definitely not like any correlation there, but yeah, I use Squarespace because their templates are just really nice. Can I bring up Squarespace?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, hopefully if we talk about them enough, I can get a sponsorship as well, because I really like Squarespace. Like,
true. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of working out whether I should get a website again, because I have them every now and again, but then I just don't know if I can afford it. Yeah, for my knitting. There was links to food, but mostly knitting. I feel like if I had a website, I'd be more likely to like blog and post recipes and stuff like that. But yeah,
that would be amazing. I love those I love looking for recipes, and I like hearing, especially if they're like from a different culture. I like reading the stories and then being like, oh, that's why like you have that, and then you have all the stuff there. But yeah, I chose Squarespace because I like the templates. I know a lot of people use Shopify, but
I feel like that's a new thing that's kind of, I don't know, it's being advertised a lot lately, but I've not looked into it. But yeah, and also I think the advantage of having your own website is that you can have your own web shop, and like there are certain companies which are bad mouth, but there was a big like company online that people were kind of like trying to avoid, or just because like they're kind of messing over like the small creators. What have you got on your website?
It's so it's just like I've got an about me, so in case anyone wants to know more, I'm just like, well, you can read about it. I wrote the weirdest thing. I have not read it since then, but I think I wrote the weirdest thing on there. So if anyone, you guys can go have a read and see what you think of it. And then I've just got like my shop. It's really, really simple. Really like nicely, well, I hope nicely laid out. I wanted to have like the brand identity that I'm sort of going for. So yeah, it's just got all my patterns on there, and then it's just a lot more control because I can then start to put things there that I might not be able to put up on other platforms. Like if I do decide to go in another direction, or if I decide to sell garments, I can like use that as a marketing sort of little platform as well as just selling it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to worry about the algorithms and stuff working for or against you. Because I definitely
Yeah.
feel like some platforms, the algorithms have changed, and like
Yeah.
it's harder to get your stuff across. But having a website probably helps quite a bit, because then you have that control. And do you have a mailing list or anything like that, or?
No, so I've only got like a test knitters list. So if people want to like test for me, I've got that list. So when a new pattern comes out, I always put it on Instagram. I don't really send an email out and say like, oh, look at this. I'm really just I'm so terrible at it. I'm so terrible at that side of it.
I was going to say casual about it rather than like pushing it in people's
Yeah.
faces. More casual about it rather than terrible.
Exactly. Well, that's how I like. I don't like pushy sales, so that's just how I like work then as well. It's like I don't want to shove it in people's faces. I'm just sort of like, you can look here and you can look here at your own leisure, and you can go here. And it's probably why I'll never sell at a market. Like, that makes me so anxious to be there and be like, oh, look at, like, I could never do that. I would sit there and I would just sit there like, oh, if you want this, I guess it's fine. Like,
I get that, but I love the interaction. Like, I've actually got a market booked up in a couple of weeks from recording this, but I'm not able to get off the time off work, so my partner's going to be able to like run the stand for me. But like, I really like talking to people about the interactions, and then maybe getting a couple of custom orders and stuff. But I think it's like, I work in hospitality, so like that customer service, talking to people is a bit more natural, perhaps.
Second nature.
But I
don't have that.
I'm hoping. I mean, obviously, knitwear kind of works better for like kind of winter and colder periods, but I'm hoping I can try and get myself to book some more markets. But
no, like, it's definitely like, every time I go to a market, people are just lovely. Like, it's so lovely. I think in my head I've got it like, oh, I've got to like do something, or I have to like really like push. But honestly, like, in the end, when I do go and I interact with like store holders, it's just real. They're just like, oh yeah, just have a look at this and that. And I'm like, cool, and I'll always avoid store holders that are pushy, or that are like, are you gonna buy this? Is this what you want? It just, I don't know, it's the introvert anxiety thing I got going on.
I mean, I quite like the interaction and like talking to people, but I'm never going to be like, oh, you should buy this. But I do like interacting with people, and it is fun, but it's weird sometimes when there's like people that come up to you. Like the other day, I was at work, and I mean, I've got a few like dog harnesses and stuff that I sell in the corner. But there was someone who came in. I don't think they realized like I was the one who was selling the stuff. And they're like, I recognize you from Knit Slips. And I was like, well, that's a weird sensation. That's kind of like, I mean, it was nice because I got to chat to like someone who's like appreciate my work. But it was kind of, it's odd. It's an odd sensation. I don't know if I'll get used to people recognizing me.
It is. I can imagine that could be really weird, especially because you were there for something else as well. And then you're
if
like,
I was
wait
at
a minute,
market,
what?
it would have been like I would have got my head around a bit more. But because I was at work and I was like getting some stuff set up, it kind of threw me off. But I mean, I guess if you're going into acting, then I would assume that you at some point you'll have to get used to people being like, oh my god.
I was thinking that, I'm like, I would be a terrible like celebrity if I ever became a celebrity. I'd just be like, what, why, wow, how do you know me? And I just wouldn't know. I'd just be like, oh great, like, it would be cool. Like, I'm sure a lot of people would be fine, but I think the introvert in me would just be like, God, I wish I was home knitting. Like, I have to go knit, or I don't know, something to that capacity.
Yeah, do you find knitting as like a nice kind of like relaxing thing for you at the end of the day, or like?
It is, yeah. It is, but then it isn't, because I put my own sort of pressures on myself to design patterns and stuff, and I'm like, all right, I gotta finish this knit, and then I can write that pattern, and then I can get that sent to my take editor, and then the take editor's done, I can get it tested, and I can, like, that's what's going through my head. Yeah, I'm going on a trip soon. I'm going to London, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I can get like 3 patterns out before then, right? I can get them in testing, because if there's nothing happening, I feel anxious. I'm like, oh, nothing's, like, I'm on holiday, that's great, but could I at least have 1 or 2 things in testing? So that feels like something's moving forward. I don't, like, it's just, it's overthinking, and I need to, like, stop.
Are there any, like, kind of projects that you're working on that are kind of more for you rather than for publishing?
Yes. So I've actually got a beanie I'm working on at the moment. Just, it's like a simple 1x1 rib beanie. It's just really, really easy. It's just something I can pick up if I'm like, oh, okay, I'm done with this. I'm just gonna, like, watch TV and knit this. And then I've also got another top that I found as well. The pattern looked really cool. I'm like, oh, this will be easy. Then when I got the pattern, I'm like, oh, it's actually really hard. But I really want to finish it because I want to take it on holiday with me, because I'll be going when it's in London. I'll be going in about September. So I don't know if it's hot or cold or both or whatever, but
it'll
that was
be
sort of the plan.
I mean, England is generally kind of mid. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, at the moment, it's getting warm, but it's, I wouldn't. You'll probably think it's probably fairly chill. So.
Yeah, I might. I do get cold really easily though, so I might think it's.
If you're used
cold.
if you're used to like hot weather, then you're probably going to find it a bit cooler here. But
as long as it's not 40 degrees or something, like
we don't really get 40.
Okay, thank God. I love like warm, but not 40 degrees warm. Like Australia.
We are we're pushing near 30 this week, which is warm for us in the UK.
Fine.
Which is
that's perfect.
Yeah, that's probably like fairly mid for you. It's probably September will probably be a bit cooler, but hopefully it'll be dry.
Yeah.
Are you going on holiday to London, or you
just holiday? Yeah.
Awesome. Have you been to London before, or England?
I did years ago. Years ago now, and I was there for about more than 3 days, like a week.
Okay.
A week or 2. I remember I stayed at this like hostel in no idea where. It was near Russell Square.
Okay, I don't know London that well, to be honest. But
somewhere, I just remember Russell Square, and I could walk to Oxford Street, and that's all I remember about that.
Oh, okay.
But it was really lovely. But I don't remember much. Like, I'm just like, what did I do? I don't remember. I didn't see Buckingham Palace, so when I go back, I'm going to go see that. Tower of London, like all the touristy
You go to
stuff.
the touristy things, yeah. There's some amazing food places over there as well, so yeah.
Definitely, I'm going to have like a Sunday roast and then just eat a lot of stuff as well.
Fair enough. Are you just staying in London? How long are you staying for?
So I'm there for about a month.
Okay.
So we're going to Brighton first
Nice.
for a week, actually.
Yeah.
And then we're going to London for the rest of the time. And then the Paris is in there as well somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Brighton's one of our favourite places to like travel to. Like for us, we like to go to Brighton and kind of Cornwall way. But yeah, Brighton's beautiful. Like, I can definitely recommend a few like coffee and food places there.
Ooh, yes, please do.
Yeah.
Please.
If you were a one on the gang yarn, what would you be and why?
Oh, if I was a woman there, I'd be the feeling good yarn. Actually, I've got some here because I was touching it to my face like that. I'd be the feeling good yarn because I would like to think I'm squishy and soft and nice. But also, I just love baby alpaca. Like, it's actually my favorite. Fiber to work with, because a lot of people ask me like, what yarn do you like to work with? I'm just like baby alpaca because it's soft, because I have pretty sensitive skin.
Thank you again for everyone for watching or listening to this podcast episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, and a massive thank you again to Phoebe for finding the time to talk to me. And I really enjoyed having the conversation and getting to know her a bit more. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you follow Phoebe on Instagram and YouTube. All the links down in the description, and she's a very good watch. Here's a little bit about today's sponsor for this episode and how to get 20% off One on the Gang. Thank you again, One on the Gang, for sponsoring this episode. Join the Makers Revolution and get 20% off with my code KNITSIPS20. 20% off excluding the usual kits, bundles and gift cards. This code applies to new customers and existing customers already. For full terms and conditions, go and check out the description down below. Thank you again for One on the Gang for sponsoring this episode. Thank you again everyone for watching or listening to this episode. I'll be back again next week with another episode, and until then, stay crafty.